Hi everyone, I welcome you all at the Pragati E-Vichar Literature Festival. Today we have gathered here for 24-hour author marathon that is a part of PVLF, and today we have Sanjana Kapur with us as speaker for the Literature Festival. And welcome ma'am, welcome to PVLF. We are so honored to have you today.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so let's just talk about who is Sanjana Kapur. So Sanjana Kapur enjoys interacting with children. She has designed and conducted various workshops in different schools across in India. She has contributed to collection and authored several comic books and picture books for Amar Chitra Katha, Saraswati Amba, Paramveer Chakra, the Divine Beings, Shakti, Gangu Gives Back, and Proud Mountain are few. She is the associate editor at Amrit Chitra Katha and never tires of telling people that she writes comics for a living. So she's a keen lover of writing comics. And her book, she has recently, I guess, books Arjuna Hanuman and also the Ram Ring. I guess it's a series of books. Okay, so this is all we know about Sanjana Kapur. So, ma'am, please tell me about yourself. Who is Sanjana Kapur?
Well, I have been working with Amar Chitra Katha for the last 13 years now. I started out with them right after college, and this has been something I've been doing for the last 13 years, which is why I love it so much. You can tell I've been here for 13 years. But yeah, essentially that is what I do. I write comics, I write for children. I love finding stories and putting them together, what children should be reading today, what they shouldn't be reading today, and try and hopefully make the right decisions in terms of that.
Okay, so when did you find your love for writing, and when did you decide working with Tinkle comics?
So I work essentially with Amar Chitra Katha. Tinkle is part of Amar Chitra Katha, but I haven't particularly worked for Tinkle. When did I learn? So my love for writing has always been there, but the fact that Amar Chitra Katha and comics is something that I really enjoyed doing is something along the way, because this was my first job, and nobody particularly teaches you any of the things that I'm doing today. It has been a learning experience. I think I'm still learning today, and if you're open to learning, I feel like it just you can thrive in any job, because there is no university that teaches you comic book writing or creative writing in India. And I feel that as much as I have learned on the job is what I have learned, and as I've been learning, it's been really a fun ride, so which is why I think I really like doing it.
It's been a long time that you have associated with Amrit Chitra Katha. Your first job until now. It's amazing. So could you please tell us some about your books recently, like Rama Ring, about the series, and Arjuna and Hanuman?
Okay, so Arjuna and Hanuman is part of the AC Amar Chitra Katha Junior series. We started this some years back when we started telling stories for children from mythology and folk tales, and in a picture book format, where with it was easy to understand and things. So Arjuna and Hanuman is part of that series. And Rama's Ring, on the other hand, is a book that we worked on a couple of years back, which is so Amar Chitra Katha has told the story of the Mahabharata and has told the story of the Ramayana. But when we were realizing and we were thinking of what to tell and what stories, because these two epics are so large in itself that there are so many stories within them. Not only that, there are so many versions of these stories, because so many people have adopted them as their own. Each part, like the Ramayana in the south will have some stories that will be different from the Ramayana in the north. There is the Tulsidas Ramayana, there is the Kamban Ramayana, there are all various kinds of Ramayana. The tribes, the Bhil tribe has their own Ramayana, the Gond tribe will have their own Ramayana. So which is what we realized, that there are so many different versions and so many vibrant versions of the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. And Rama's Ring is essentially is essentially a collection of stories from different kinds of Ramayana and Mahabharata, from
Okay.
different parts of India. Yeah.
So, inspiring from this book, we have curated your topic, Humility Hanuman and the Essence of Being Human. And we will talk about the Humility Hanuman and the Essence of Being Human today. So, just like
Okay.
you said that Arjuna and Hanuman is a series in which you have, we have a list of books. So, why did you choose this name, Arjuna and Hanuman? You could have chosen something else because it's about depict Ramayana and Mahabharata. So we have a lot of characters.
Yeah. So Arjuna and Hanuman. Hanuman is essentially an interesting character because he lives through both the epics. So Ramayana happens first according to the timeline, and then Mahabharata takes place. Whereas Hanuman is someone who transcends that time and is present during the Mahabharata. There is a story. The more famous story is that when he meets Bhim, because Bhim and Hanuman are both sons of the wind god, and so technically are brothers. So they both meet each other, and that is a more famous story. Whereas this story of Arjuna meeting Hanuman is not a very well known story. Whereas he meets him and is actually part of his flag in the war. Hanuman is part of the flag of Arjuna's chariot, and it's just the interesting story of how every time Hanuman is essentially someone who ends up really, he's for lack of a better word, so down to earth. Like, he just believes what he wants and goes from there. And I feel like his interaction with various characters in general, not only in the Ramayana but even the ones that he meets in the Mahabharata, are interesting.
Okay.
We have a book called Bhima and Hanuman as well, and in the same ACK Junior series, and so we thought Arjuna and Hanuman was a good one to do as well, because both stories are very unique and interesting in their own way.
Okay. Okay. So basically, that the qualities of Hanuman, you just depict that he's a down to earth person and he's the powerful, courageous person. So we are going to, link this qualities and link this topic like within the essence of being human. So, according to you, what kind of teachings and preachings should a human gain from Hanuman?
Okay,
How can,
so
yeah, for the work
yeah, so
balance, for the life balance.
okay, so I'm going to step back a little bit and just talk about the fact that um, a lot of our mythology and our epics and our gods and goddesses and the way they sort of interact with each other and their stories are a reflection on how humans are, because how we behave with each other, the humanity between people, how those stories, they are all reflections in the way we interact on a daily basis. Hanuman in itself, I feel, is a very enduring part of the Ramayana, is because his his dedication to anybody he is with is truly one, with all of the focus that it needs. Because when he is Sugriev's minister, for example, he is Sugriev's minister through and through. He will stand by him for everything. And then when Sugriv says that you go to Ram and you be by Ram's side, give him all the help that you need, he takes that to his heart and does everything with pure and utter dedication, and which is what makes him such an interesting character and one of the least flawed characters. I feel like the main protagonists still have flaws, whereas his one-sided way of doing things with pure dedication is really something that one can um, look at and be inspired by.
Okay. So Lord Hanuman is considered as the symbol of humanity for the simple reason like commitment, patience, and humility. So can we believe that Hanuman is more of a subconscious energy to develop rather than just worship him as a god?
No, absolutely. Like I said, a lot of the times during so much of because while we are writing these stories, what happens is we end up doing a lot of research and reading a lot of the text in their original form and direct translations, and for us to try and get a very good sense of what the story is like, how it was written, what time it was written in, and there are so many characters that come out from there
Okay.
that are true reflections of, it doesn't matter what time it was written in, what their situation was, there is something that reflects in what we do today, and that is essentially how stories are written. Stories today that are written are reflections of today. They are reflections of humankind, they are reflections of the way we behave, they are mirrors to for us. We find answers in what we cannot see, or when we cannot figure out something, we find answers in the texts that we read, the stories that we read. And essentially it is the fact, it is stories that will survive everything. At the end of all this, it will be the stories of these characters, these people from um, epics like Hanuman, who will essentially transcend time, because they will be relevant at any point of time, because there'll be something, these sort of qualities of dedication and compassion and thing is something that the human race will always need. So we will always find place for these characters.
Okay. So, because you have written so many books on these kind of topic, Ramayana and Mahabharata, so you must have a lot of insights of, ancient culture and ancient folklores. So, do you actually believe in God, right? So that it's my answer. The people are else so many that who don't believe in gods,
Hmm.
right?
So um there is for me it's simple. There is I may not believe in God as God per se, but I feel like each story has, I look at them more as stories. Personally, I look at them more as stories, which makes it more enduring to me. Like, I think I would love something more when it's a story than if I believed that it was something much larger than me, because it makes it easy for me to uh, talk to that story. It makes it easy for me to take something back from that story. Whereas for me to say that all of these characters in our mythology, or all of these people that we read about, are without any flaw, or without any, everything comes with good and bad, and that's what makes it so real and believable, and something that one can relate to. And when you're actually relating to something and listening to it, is when you realize you know uh, how much there is from this story, that this story can give you. Because if you're looking at it with that pureness of it being a story, and what is the story trying to tell me, then there is a lot more that you can take from it, is how I look at all of these stories.
Okay, okay. So humanity today survive on the mere aspect, give and take, right? So contrary to it, is it the logo of our forces, service before self, or is the modern generation bound by the simple thought that selfless service is generated by developing thought of extracting the take in future?
Okay. So um so I you know what each my thought is that each generation comes with their own set of uh, difficulties that they have to deal with. The problems that people a century back had are not the problems that people have today. And
Okay.
if we look at it in that sense, at the essence, I feel like everybody is sort of struggling with similar things, but you're battling a whole lot of different things, so which is essentially why these stories are still read today in some form of the other. You may need the new generation to look at these stories slightly differently. You may need these stories to be told with context, but the stories will remain. And it is not something that um, that in its essence is what will hold everybody together, because you're right, people are not the same that they were some time back. That is a
Right.
given, and the way the world has changed so rapidly, not just uh, 10 years back, but even in the last few years. If you just look at the last 2 years, it has changed so rapidly that
Yeah.
it is not fair to assume that the generation of today should hold up to that ideals. They will hold up to a new set of ideals, but and because they are battling so much more than that an older generation was. So I feel that if you look at the whole picture, is when you're going to be a little bit more compassionate towards everybody else, is what I feel.
Okay. So when you write stories like this, based on mythological and folklore, so you have this, in mind that these kind of story that I am trying to, portray in front of audience is just for the, cultural beliefs that I would like to, tell them ki these are our cultural beliefs. Or you think that I it's our duty to tell them that yeah, this is our culture and you need to learn it. So what is your actually, perception behind retelling your stories, retelling these kind of stories to the audience?
So Amar Chitakatha's thing has been, and I'm going to talk specifically about the work that I've done with Amar Chitakatha. And the thing is that Amar Chitakatha was started by Anant Pai, whose belief was that that you he wanted to tell stories from India, not just mythology, but any history, folklore. Any part of Indian stories is what he wanted to tell to kids today, because what he realized was that, and this is something that my editor Reena tells me, and Reena worked with Uncle Pai, so I feel like it comes directly from there. Is that if your roots are strong, if you feel you know where you come from well, you can go out there in the world and do what you want to, because you can achieve what you want to, because you know your roots, you know where you're from. You do what you do with that information, and what you do with with all these stories, or what you do with everything that you learn through the course of reading all of this, is up to you. But
Mhm.
the fact that you know all of it, the fact that you believe all of it, it doesn't even matter as to how much you believe, but you get to form you make an informed opinion. It's not hearsay. You're reading and you're seeing these stories in their truest form. And when kids read stuff from of people like them, they read
Okay.
reflections of who they are in books. It's very strong. It's a very strong message to send, because that just shows you that I can see someone there in front of me, that is someone like me, and they can do that so much. Then I'm sure I can too. I can go out there in the world, because this is where they came from, and this is where I come from as well. So it is with that essence of telling Indian stories is what Amajita stands for. And yeah, I feel like it's quite a strong thought to have, that if you know where your roots are, your roots are strong, then you can spread the tree that has its roots that are strong and deep, is the tree that will also spread a lot more up there and have a lot more shade. So it just essentially, I think, applies to humans as well. If they know where they are and their roots are deep, they'll be able to achieve a lot more.
And I am hoping that Amar Chitra is doing very well to just, portraying this thought in front of viewers and readers. So, what effect does Hanuman Chalisa has on the human psychology? Hanuman Chalisa.
This is so this isn't something that I feel confident enough to answer, because it is something, Hanuman Chalisa is very revered for whoever is reading it. It's a revered piece of text. It's something that people keep in a very very safe space in their house and in a place that they would respect. So it comes from a lot of respect. And
Okay.
I'm not sure what it does to human psychology, but and I feel that this is true of any revered text. It's not just the Hanuman Chalisa, but it's any religion, anybody who reads a text. Each of them each religion has their text and words written by someone who they believe in. And I feel like all of this is something that helps uh, ground them, and help sort of believe in something. I think it's interesting how much faith can do, because if you believe in something strong enough, then it can do wonders. Everything exists or has that power because enough people believe in it. It
Okay.
essentially boils down to that. And if you can have a strong belief in something, I think that's a great thing to have.
So this thing, the reading, chanting Hanuman Chalisa, did it ever happen to you that you are in kind of, that you are chanting Hanuman Chalisa and you feel like, God, what I'm gonna do?
Not
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 at all.
really. I haven't, no, because I haven't particularly ever. I've heard my grandfather read it. I've heard my mother read it. She reads it every day because her father read it. And my grandfather used to read the Ramayana every day in the morning. In fact, my grandfather, he during the partition came from Pakistan to this side during the partition, and so he learned to me how to read Urdu. So his Ramayana was in Urdu, and he used to read the Ramayana in Urdu. So it is. I haven't particularly felt it myself, but I'm sure, like for anybody who reads it on a regular basis, there is a reason that they are reading it on a regular basis, because it gives them the strength that it needs to. So, and this is true of anybody reading something every day. So
So don't you think that, your Ramayana and Mahabharat retellings and stories are in your roots, and you are doing it at a professional level, writing comics about the mythology and folklore. You could have write comic on, different topic, different subject, but you are doing it on Ramayana, mythological, and, ancient literature. So have you ever given a thought, you want to write apart from mythology and folklore?
yeah, so I do. It's not just mythology that I've written. We And which is why I'm saying that it's not mythology is one part of the stories that we have in India, and it is also one of the living mythologies. It is either Hindu mythology is a living mythology. People are still believing in it, and and it's not just that. We write history, folk tales. I find folk tales a great way to look at society. From when it shows you so much of where the folktale is from, tells you so much of the people who live there, or whose story this belongs to. It tells you so much of what they believe in.
Okay.
And there is a lot. So I feel like all of this has a lot to tell, and we tell all of these stories. It's not just mythology. Mythology is a part of it.
Okay.
Folklore is a large part of it. History, women. We are actually making a conscious effort to tell newer stories, because I don't think we will ever run out of champions from society whose stories deserve to be told.
Right.
And I feel that that's a very exciting place to be in, to be able to find these stories and tell them to the kids today, because I feel like there is enough to be told. And so all parts of it, if we do one mythology book, then right after that we do a folk tale, and then we do a history. So all of them get their equal space in all our stories.
Yeah. So when you write for these kind of stories, so what would you read first? Like, gaining insight, for exploring the stories. So you have any specific author, or you write manuscripts or Ramayana and Mahabharata over and over again, different perspectives. So what's your research basically?
Yeah, so You're asking me about my research specifically for mythology?
For whatever you just said, like Arjuna and Hanuman. Take a just
Okay,
an
so
instance.
mythology comes with a lot of like it's all been written. They are all texts that have been written. So we start there. If we can find a translation of the Ramayana, we refer to that. And because then, the Sanskrit verse is just directly translated, and then you know which facts to leave. When you're telling a story for children, you're not going to use every single detail that is in there. You choose the relevant parts of the story, and
Okay.
you create a synopsis. So through books and reading is what we do. Authentic translations of the original text is where we begin. we
Okay.
also consult we also consult people who are experts in the text. There are people who are experts at the Ramayana and have studied it. So we consult with them. When we did the Valmiki's Ramayana, for example, which is 6 books long, it is we consulted with someone who was an expert in Ramayana. We had both the volumes of the entire translated text, wherein we would go back to what Valmiki had written originally to try and figure out whether we were telling the stories in the most authentic way possible, so that then without actually changing anything, and to refer to it as to all the visuals that he put in, and to see what parts of those we should use in our comics too, because comics are such a visual medium.
Yeah.
And actually, if you go back to the Ramayana and read it, you will see how much is explained and how much is actually
Right.
how many descriptions are actually in it that we don't particularly know of. So yeah, that is essentially where our uh, research for mythology starts. Whereas research for a book like Rama's Ring, where we were looking at mythologies, Ramayana and Mahabharata from various different parts of the country, and not necessarily they don't necessarily exist in text form.
Okay.
So this is it's more of a oral tradition or somebody having recorded it. So if we can find it in a book, we refer it, and we cross reference it with a book. Talking to people from that place helps, because they can tell you exactly what their stories are.
Okay.
And then crossing it with at least 3 or 4 different sources is how we do our research with where mythology is concerned.
Okay. So your book, Rama's Ring, you just said that people has been penned on, different version of their retellings. So in Rama's Ring, you have written 9 lesser known facts, which is, basically you bring Ramayana and Mahabharata together, and you chose this piece, Ramayana Ring. So, what was the relevance that you were portraying, like through this story? So, you are saying that you take out the only relevant pieces when you choose the mythological stuff to write, right? So, why did you choose this particular story, the Rama ring, the Hanuman and Arjun conversation?
So Arjuna and Hanuman is not part of Rama's ring. There are different other versions of the Ramayana. It starts off with a story about why the many Ramayanas exist. It is part of an essay that was written sometime back, and it is essentially gives an explanation as to how there is different universes, and how there is a multi-universe happening, where there are various Ramas and various Ramayanas that are happening. And it's Hanuman who actually goes. So Rama's ring sort of falls through the crack, and he jumps in trying to figure out where the ring has gone. And it is essentially in that search for that ring that Hanuman chances upon the fact that um, this Rama cycle is ending, and then there will be another Ramayana, and the whole story will take place. And since Hanuman transcends time, he is there to witness it all over and over again.
Okay.
And that is sort of an explanation of why there are so many Ramayanas. The simple thing is that when a text is so larger than life, Ramayana in itself is its own entity. It is bound to get adapted, and it is bound to get loved by every community. And when each community ends up adapting it to their own self, and they say they adopt it, and they say that this is going to be what we refer to, then they will modify it because people want to see themselves in their stories that they believe in. They will modify it to become that part of the thing. So like the Bhil Ramayana considers Lakshman is the main character in it, and it is Lakshman who lives in the forest like them, who lives in the forest, loves the forest, sort of thrives with the animals, and it is him. He is the main protagonist, and there are others that Rama comes along, and there's a whole thing. But he is the main. It is from his point of view that the entire Ramayana is told.
Okay.
So it makes it their own. It takes the essence of Ramayana and makes it their own, which is what makes Ramayana so beautiful. Which is what makes it so thing that all versions are accepted by that thing. It belongs to everyone, whoever wishes to adapt it to their self. So yeah.
So books of Amar Chitra Katha revolves around the children the most, which we have seen so far that the age group is within 6 to 13, I guess. But adult people still read it. Yeah.
Yes, we say it's 8 to 80. Everybody reads
Okay.
from 8 to 80-year-olds. Everybody there's an Amar Chitra Katha for everyone.
So, does the portrayal of Hanuman contains enough power to transmit the beliefs onto a child psychology?
So Hanuman is actually a character that there are a lot of childhood stories of. In fact, we have an Amar Chitra Katha Junior story called Hanuman is Hungry. And I just find that so true to a child of that age. He's a little boy in that, and he doesn't know how strong he is, and he gets into all kinds of mischief, and breaks because he jumps from one house to the other, and so breaks up somebody's house. He wants to eat the sun at some point because he thinks it's a large mango. And it's these little things that are so true to what a child of that age would do. Maybe not jump to the sun because he can't, but fuss for a certain thing and want to get it or strive to get it, and that innocence of being a kid. And I feel like Hanuman is enduring to all ages, because there are his stories expand through so much time and space. And the scoldings that he gets, and getting into trouble as a child and stuff like that, is what makes him so honest. And I feel like once you're reading that, it is, if you're talking to a child about children, like the story is about children, I feel like a child's going to take to it a lot easier, than if you tell him stories about, it's which part of Hanuman's story that you're telling to a child is how you start getting him involved in wanting him to know more, or wanting her to see what is Hanuman all about and stuff. So it's that enduring quality that you have to bring through the stories, or find the right story to tell to start things off with. But there's enough to get a child interested. Yeah.
Tricky way to tell them like about the Hanuman. Hanuman is hungry. Nice. So, how
Yeah.
is Amar Chitra Katha encouraging the portrayal of Indian culture and colors in the society?
So I feel that Amar Chitra Katha's strongest quality is that it is telling stories that are true and in its most factual form. It is the fact that it is that you can rely on the facts that are in the story, that makes it a true reflection of society, and a true a portrayal of what these stories can do. Because in our most recent we did a year or 2 years back, we did a book called Women Path Breakers, and it was all women, the first woman doctor, the first woman meteorologist, the first woman botanist, and various other stories like that. And it was stories of people from that time, like Janaki Ammal, and the fact that she all she wants to do is work in a place, and because she's truly in love with plants, and how she navigates that society. And there are bits of it that are still a reflection. It is the fact that that story is told in such a true form of what she went through to be who she was, that
Okay.
makes Amar Chitra Katha so unique in itself. Because I feel like if you're being truthful to kids when writing to kids, they are going to endure to you a lot more. They are going to love you a lot more, and they are going to want more from you a lot more when they know that you're telling them the truth. Because adults don't tend to tell kids all of the truth, and I feel like when you're telling the truth to kids, they want to know, more then. And I feel like that's where Amar Chitra Katha comes in.
Okay. So, last question. So you have been working in Amar Chitra Katha, right? So you must have, build up the, quality of telling children how to, tell them to learn about the Indian culture, roots, and ancient folklores. So this thing, did it help you when, like, with your children, to telling them, yeah, this is how you learn, and this is the way, this is how you learn, and this is, you should know about your Indian culture. So it's kind of an illustrative way, so you showed to them and tell them, yeah.
So, my son is just 4 years old right now. So
Okay.
I he isn't in the space where he needs to know any of this right now. But I so even when writing with for Amar Chitra Katha, and telling the stories or choosing the stories for Amar Chitra Katha, our aim is not to imbibe kids with Indian culture. It is not our aim to make them believe something. It is not that. Our aim is to tell the stories that come from the land they belong to. Our aim is to purely bring joy through the stories in whatever form, of to whatever age group. And what the kids take, in fact, we encourage the kids to use this as a point to start conversation. Amar Chitra Katha has been around for 54 years. The stories that they have been telling for 54 years is vast. It is and the stories that were written 54 years back were written for that generation. The stories that are being written now are being written for today's the way the world is today. And I feel like, and what we believe is that we will tell stories. What the child takes away from it, what the parent takes away from it, what conversations it starts, is up to the reader. Is
Okay.
completely up to the reader. What you take, because what one person takes away from a story is not the same as what another person takes away
Another
from the
person,
story.
right?
So yeah, and so I think if you're telling a story with the purpose of trying to teach something, I think then you lose sight of what your story is. Whereas if
Okay.
you're telling the story just to tell the story, and to be purely honest and tell the story in its truest form, and let the result of it be whatever it may be, then I feel like then that's the most honest way to tell a story. To not try and preach anything, but to just tell the story.
Okay. So now you have been working for 20 years, and we have seen that because of technology, everything has been, digitalized. And the Amar Chitra Katha is in printed and as well as available in a digitalized form. So because of technology, does it affect the, viewership of Amar Chitra Katha?
There was a time when the TV became really, it was up there. There was Cartoon Network on TV. A lot more was available to kids. That is when Amar Chitra Katha started seeing a slight shift in the way their sales were. Whereas today, there is so much more of the attention that you're fighting for. A child of today has so much happening in their lives that you're fighting for those little bit, for that time of theirs to, for them to, when they want to read they find an Amar Chitra Katha. So it's more of a challenge, but we are very much a big part um, uh, of a child's life. I feel like, and there is a lot of nostalgia around Amar Chitra Katha. Amar Chitra Katha is so big in itself that it becomes something that is passed down through generations. It is something that continues to live in whatever form, and so we are adapting, which is why we have the Amar Chitra Katha app now, it saw a considerable spike during the pandemic because people weren't going out, and so there was a way for them to read at home. It saw a considerable spike, and it is things like that that make us believe that the stories that we are telling and will continue to be read in some form or the other. And there are new bookstores coming up every day. There are new things happening every day. That means there are enough people reading. There's a reason that the bookstore, that someone there out there chose to open a bookstore, is because they believe that there are enough people reading. So if there are enough people reading, then Amar Chitra Katha will keep telling stories.
Okay, okay. So thank you so much, Sanjana ma'am. I had a very
Thank
good
you.
session with you, and I've learned a lot about mythology, folklore, and I'm hoping that the Amar Chitra are doing his great job, to retelling the story to the children and to the other people. And I'm hoping that more and more that you are doing your job so that people will learn a lot more about mythology and connected to their roots. So thank you so much, Sanjana ma'am. I had a very good session with you. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
ma'am.
Thank you so
Bye.
much for having me.